Welcome, everyone, to our seminar on religion, spirituality, and health. This month, we have Dr. Madhu Sharma, who is going to present on anxiety and Vedic wisdom. Dr. Sharma is a visiting scholar at the Chinmaya International Foundation, currently teaching a course on spiritual care. She's a former Hindu chaplain at Duke University and an author of 2 books and multiple other publications. Born in India, she was raised in Africa. She has spent all of her adult life in the USA. She has formal graduate education at 2 Big Ten universities, teaching experience at several universities, community leadership activities, and formal executive and personal coaching experiences. She exhibits a balance of left and right brain skills demonstrated through engineering and business careers at 2 Fortune 500 companies, running a small international business and social work experience. So Dr. Sharma has a lot of experience, and I have known her personally for 5 to 10 years at Duke. She has participated in all sorts of our activities. So it's with great pleasure and that I introduce her. And she will say a few words also about herself now. Madhu, go ahead and say a few words.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Koenig. I call him Harold when I talk to him, but thank you so much, Harold. And yes, we've known each other for a long time, right? And before I tell you about myself, I'm going to tell you I'm really in debt with Dr. Koenig for sure, because he was one of my committee chair with the PhD that I just completed 3 years ago now, actually. So he helped me out, mentored me, and guided me through my PhD program. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And that's what I'm actually presenting today. So I just wanted to start with that at least. Yes, I am Madhu Sharma, and I moved to Raleigh-Durham area with my parents in 1972. So it's going to be actually 50 years soon this summer. I did my engineering at NC State and way back in the 70s, and did my master's in social work from University of Iowa, where we lived, and worked like Harold said, but moved back to the area in 2010, actually. And Duke University was looking for a Hindu chaplain. And so they approached me because my parents are like the godparents of Hindu for the Hindu communities in the Triangle area, actually, So not having any of formal education in Hinduism, but there were not too many people who were applying. Actually, they asked me to apply because there's only 2 of us actually who applied for the chaplaincy position at the time. And so I decided, okay, I will help out and until we find somebody else. And I ended up actually staying there for 8.5 years. So I was a Hindu chaplain at Duke University for over 8 years. And I ended up learning as much as maybe I was helping others learn about Hinduism by being there. And younger Hindu generation, the students, and actually non-Hindus also, would ask me questions about Hinduism, which I did not have the answers to. So I decided decided to go back to school and do my PhD in Hinduism. So I would learn what Hinduism is all about, and also then I could help the younger generation. So I was over 60 when I actually started working on my PhD, and just completed 3 years ago, and learned so much more, and I was so excited to understand and learn about my own background, which I didn't know. So that's what actually the book I'm going to talk about is Anxiety and Vedic Wisdom. This is the book, but this is actually my thesis. And that's what I'm going to kind of go through the process and discuss. But, you know, I like you said, I came here when I was a teenager. And so for me to learn all this just is so exciting about the information or the heritage that I have, such rich heritage. And one of the things that I'm so excited about here talking to you all is because I think most people, and I'm in 60s, you know, most people don't know about Hinduism, what that is. And I would love to talk more and more and help people understand more about it. So with that, I am just going to kind of go through the slides and talk through it, if that's okay.
Sounds good. Okay.
And maybe, how about maybe leaving 15, 20 minutes at the end for questions, or even half an hour for questions and answers?
Sure, that would be great. That would be great. Okay.
So if I go through this too quickly, because the Vedic wisdom is so enormous that I can't obviously talk about it, in half hour, 45 minutes, but I will try to do my best. And what my goal or intention for this research was to bring actually the Vedic wisdom, and then also bring the, scientific research, and kind of basically have a proof that the Vedic wisdom for anxiety, specifically for anxiety in this particular presentation, for anxiety, what the Vedic wisdom talks about, and the research that has been done to validate that. I will not give you all the material, the research actually papers in this presentation, but if you are interested, let me know and I'll send that to you. So with that, I am going to start Anxiety and Vedic Wisdom. And Vedic wisdom is, like I said, enormous. But in the beginning, I'll talk about the Vedas and the Upanishads, and then bring the anxiety solutions from the Vedas, which have been validated by science, if that makes sense. And then at the end, I'm going to end with my contribution to what I think life should be. Actually, having science and spirituality marry the two together, actually. So if you can maybe go to the next slide. Hinduism is Hinduism is actually very the phrase Hinduism is very, 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 very new. Obviously, most of you, I'm sure, know about that, but it's a basis from the Vedic teachings. And the Vedas are the oldest scriptures, and they're over like 8,000 years old, which I'm, not going to spend too much time on that, but the Vedas address all health issues, mental, physical, all health issues for sure. But there are 4 Vedas, and I'll go through them quickly from, these. See, there's a Rig Veda, which talks about the creation of the universe. And it also has all kinds of knowledge of the universe, actually. And one of the parts of the Rig Veda is also the Ayurveda. Ayurveda is big, and Ayurveda is actually the medical part of Rig Veda, which talks about the physical and the mental, and actually the all of it, actually starting from the eating, the food that we eat and what it does to our system. And just bear in mind, this was like over 8,000 years ago, but Ayurveda specifies. We used to, when I was growing up, we would talk about, Ayurveda, that all ailments start in the stomach. So what we ate and how we ate and when we ate made all the difference in our health, physical as well as mental health. And one of the things that recently we have proven that that the what we ate, actually the in the stomach and the brain are all connected. And Ayurveda knew that all along, all these thousands of years ago. And we as scientists have just recently validated that. So, people grew up in India thinking that, okay, whatever you eat, it's going to make all the difference in how you behave and how you're going to feel mentally, anxiety, depression, or, all kinds of other ailments, actually. And so Rig Veda is actually supposed to be considered the oldest Veda. And what it is that the Rig Veda was directly dictated by the divine, actually. It was orally said, and Rishi Munis, which were the monks, have actually written that down. And one of the main mantras from this is actually the Gayatri Mantra, which brings the energy into us, into the system, into the human mind. And also it kind of synchronizes when you recite this Gayatri Mantra in the right way, it actually synchronizes your vibration to the divine's vibration. And the goal is basically to be in sync with the universe. So Gayatri Mantra actually can help you do that if it's done properly, and pronunciation and the length and all that, it makes all the difference in the world. And it is for praying for divine energy. So number 2 is the Samaveda. And Samaveda is actually detailed about the knowledge and of worship. So it's more about the devotion part of it. It's devotional. And in singing, this is where the music comes into, so the gospel music of for the Hindus, bhajans, like we say, or even the mantras, reciting, how we recite it, in what format and all that. So Samaveda brings out the devotional part of it. And, but it's the same thing. It's about getting in sync and synchronizing your vibration to the universe. And so Rig Veda is more, the first one was more knowledge, which is the Jnana Yoga. And then the Samaveda talks more about the devotional part of it. And the Yajur Veda then is actually the Vedic rituals. So the Hindu priest, when they go to school, they actually study Yajur Veda, and they learn the rituals from the Yajur Veda, and they come out in the workplace then doing the rituals, performing the ceremonies and things like that. So that's what the Yajur Veda does. And the Atharva Veda is actually kind of a mystical Veda, and it's a magical part of the universe. It also has all kinds of thousands of mantras in it to help you cure disease and fulfilling all kinds of desires. And in the Atharva Veda, some of them are also kind of questionable for me as a person, because you can actually, this is one of the Vedas that people bring curses out. So if you've heard about people are cursing, it's from this Atharva Veda, which is not obviously advisable, and but it does say that it has some mantras that are actually could be used to curse other people. The one that I like to look at, or would like to talk more about, is the blessing. Atharva Veda also has thousands of mantras that actually you can bless people with maybe the diseases or the desires or love and affection and those type of things. So that's the part that I think we should more concentrate on, but there is some in there that you can actually cause some curse in different people through that. So those are the Vedas, really going through it very quickly. Can you move on to the next page? Yeah, thank you. So the Upanishads are the Vedas. So there are 4 Vedas, and then there are actually 108 Upanishads written out of those 4 Vedas. The Vedas were 4, but they're very vague, and they're very written in a form that's not very easy to understand for human mind, because they're just vague, very vaguely written, and knowledge in those Vedas, but they're not easy to understand. So people, took those 4 Vedas and actually started and wrote 108 Upanishads out of those 4 Vedas, and they were written at different time in the history. But the knowledge is from the Vedas, originated from the Vedas in these Upanishads. And the Upanishad also talks about a lot of the stories actually in it to help people understand what the real knowledge means. So, but the Isha Upanishad actually is called the inner rule. It's who Isha Upanishad or Isha Upanishad is actually about going inside. And if I say that again and again, because most of these, that's what it is. It's about inside, our inner part of the human being. The Upanishad is about the sense of the self. Self meaning your inner self, or we call it Atma in Hinduism. So that's what it's about. And one of the main things about this Upanishad, and in a lot of other areas also, is that, and that's what the Vedas actually say, that human Atma is part of the Brahma. So Brahma is the divine power, or the universe, or the Brahma is, we are part of that, or we're one and the same. So it's a non-duality message that is from the Vedas actually. And number 2 is the Katha Veda, and this has a profound knowledge of the Brahman, and that's taken from the Vedas and put into this Katha Upanishad, and how it also talks about how can you actually understand the Brahma, and how can you experience it. And so Hinduism, one of the things about Hinduism is that the knowledge is all there, but it's all about experience. We can talk about it for hours and hours, but the whole idea of is that you have to experience the inner self of who we are. We have to experience the Brahma. Okay, number 3 is the Kena Upanishad, discusses that the soul, or the Atma, is very difficult to comprehend, because there's no, the physical part we can all see. We can even feel the breath or see the breath, depending on the temperature, obviously. But we can hear things, the vibrations and the sound vibration and all that. But the soul, you can't see. So it's very difficult to comprehend what that is, and that's why a lot of people don't talk about it. We can't have a soul put in a box or anything, or in a glass container or anything for it to be seen. It has to be felt and experienced actually. But this Kena Upanishad actually talks more about it, and it says that the mind itself is also, it talks about more about the mind and the intellect, and the knowledge about the Brahma again. So all of these are pretty much about the knowledge of the Brahma, but the Kena Upanishad talks about the mind a little bit, and it comes into, the intellect comes into picture in this particular Upanishad. And it's basically talks about that the mind, the Brahma of the universe, it's the controller of the soul, is the controller of the mind, and directs the senses. So the intellect, the mind actually directs the senses, and the physical body actually does the action. Next is Mundaka. Mundaka is it's this particular Upanishad discusses a lot more the rituals part. So depending on which Vedas they were taken, and I'm not going into the detail because we don't have that much time, but this one talks about the rituals and talks about if you do some of these rituals, you can go to heaven. And Vedas don't say that in detail, but the Upanishad is translated it. And obviously one thing to understand that the Vedas are the original text, but the Upanishad also has the commentary from people who were written these Upanishads and their own understanding of the Vedas. So there might have been some things added in these Upanishads that were not there in the Vedas. So that this particular Upanishad talks about that individual souls, because of our own ignorance, has been separated from the Brahma. But it can be, we can be reunited if we feel like, we are Brahma, our souls are part of the Brahma, or we are Brahma, obviously. But our bodies and mind actually are ignorant, and we have forgotten that. We don't know what it is like. So this particular Upanishad talks more about how do you go back and experience that unity. Okay, then we have the Aitareya Upanishad, and I'm kind of keeping track of time. And actually, I'm going to go through it a little quicker here. This kind of gives this particular is actually interesting, but I could talk about half an hour on this particular one, but I'll go through it quickly because it talks about the creation of the universe. So it's taken from the Vedas. The creation of the universe talks about in this number 5. Number 6 is Brihadaranyaka, which means basically the mind awareness part in this, and it literally means the green forest, and it talks about going to the nature basically. And Chandogya number 7 is actually very, very popular and it's very important Upanishad, and this is where the symbol Om actually has come. Om that all of you have heard about is part of this Chandogya Upanishad. And it also permitting oneself to move forward to what his or her desires are for the ritual. So with the reciting of Om and before a lot of mantras, you can actually fulfill your desires, of these worldly desires, materialistic desires, actually. And some of them call this to be the nectar of the universe. This Om is the essence of who we are and what we are, actually. Let's see. And the Mandukya is the Upanishad, is the briefest. It's a very small one, but it also talks about the Om in a different way. And it's a smaller one, but it goes a little bit more detail into how the Om is, recited. It's like Om, so it goes a little bit more into detail with that, actually. And the Taittiriya is this Upanishad distinguished between pleasure and joy. It describes the pleasure is from the sensory. Our senses actually experience the pleasure, but which is transient and it doesn't stay longer. But if it's the joy comes from within, inside us, and that can be limitless and also permanent. So that's what this number 9 talks about. And the Prashna Upanishad then is actually, it goes into the creation, goes back to the creation, talks about the creation. But one of the main things about this one is that it talks about the prana. Prana is the life force, actually. Prana is the life force. And that's what this talks more about. And the life force is the breathing. So, it talks about the dream and the dream state, various stages of dream, and also the breathing part. And one of the things that has been proven is now there is some breathing techniques that they call box breathing. which is like breathing one and holding it one, and then, exhaling and then hold one and inhaling. But these have been proven to be very effective. But this all comes from these, from these Upanishads, actually. And so the prana is the life force, and the yam is the exercise, which is the breathing exercise, which has become a big part of yoga, obviously, now that I'm sure all of you have heard about. Let's see, number 11 then is the Bhagavad-Gita. And it is also considered as part of the Vedas, but it's also considered one of the Upanishads. It was not in the original Upanishad list, but it because it's a newer version, because Bhagavad-Gita was written after or during the Mahabharata, when Krishna was actually teaching Arjuna about how to handle anxiety. In my opinion, the whole Bhagavad-Gita, one of the main part of Bhagavad-Gita, is helping Arjuna understand, deal with his anxiety and still doing his duties, actually, because he was too very anxious about not wanting to fight. And so the Krishna tells him why he needs to fight and how does he need to take care of his anxiety and all that. So that's what Bhagavad-Gita is about. Okay, Harold, can we move on to the next one? So the Vedic solutions for anxiety from the Vedic philosophy is, the Vedas talk about solutions for mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. And one of the things that we, in the modern world, we don't talk about, which obviously this group, you're all here, so it may be like preaching to the choir, but we don't talk about spiritual well-being. We talk about mental and physical health. We don't talk about spiritual health. And that has become my passion now, to start talking more and more about the spiritual health, spiritual well-being rather than health, I guess. But we need to bring that out, because that's a big part of who we are. And, we can talk about whether it's a consciousness or it's soul or itself. We can give it whatever name we want to give it, but there's a part of us that is difficult to comprehend, and it's only to be experienced. And that's the spiritual part, right? And so that's, that's what the Vedic philosophy talks a lot of it about. And a lot of the mantras, thousands and thousands of mantras are written actually to talk about that. And Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna again talks about, talk to Arjuna, helping him, guide him, coach him. Actually, he was a coach at the time of the war. That's what he did. So my goal is actually to coach people with, with the spiritual well-being, and help them understand how they can manage anxiety. Now, this is not to say that a lot of the psychiatrists or a lot of the healthcare professionals that I'm talking to today, that there is no place for medical intervention. Obviously not. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just having the regular day-to-day anxiety into manage that, basically. Okay, so can we move to the next one? So these are what 9 steps for managing anxiety. Well, let me actually, before I go to that, I want to talk about the yoga system of Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. Is actually part of the Vedic philosophy. But it's not as old as maybe the Vedas were written, or even the Upanishads were written. It's Patanjali was the Yoga Sutras, the father of that. He basically wrote all that. And yoga has become obviously very big all over the world. And in the West, and the reason I just wanted to say a couple of minutes, in the West, it has become only about the physical asanas, or the physical, various asanas of yoga, which is actually obviously a wonderful thing. And it emphasizes more on the stretching part. But that's only a very very small part of it, actually. The Yoga Sutra Patanjali talks about the breathing as a big part of yoga, breathing and meditation, and also the physical part, obviously. So the physical is big, but it's only one part of it, and that's what's become the yoga actually in the world. Even in India, not just the West, even in India, people are now taking yoga lessons, and they go to the yoga studios and all that for the physical workout. And now I think slowly people are adding the breathing part of it. But breathing, meditation, and the physical, all that is combined is yoga, actually. And that's not even all. Some of this is part of the yoga that I'll be talking about more and more. So the steps to managing anxiety, number one, which is the Vedas talk about role of pure mind. The mind has to be pure. So, the guilt and the resentment and all of those things that we have as human beings actually makes us anxious. And so role of a pure mind is basically living a life without, which is difficult. I'm not saying it's not difficult, but it's very difficult, but it's still at least something that we need to think about. If we want to live a life of anxiety-free life, then we have to look at our thoughts. We have to look at our mind, and the thoughts is a big part of, obviously we all know that, but for Hindu, the way I've connected this or understood this from the Vedas is that the thought also converts into the action. So we're looking at a thought starting a positive or a negative thought and going into, that thought makes us emotions out the emotions in us, and those emotions then bring out the action in us, and the action is what takes us to karma. So whatever positive or negative thought that we have, a tiny one thought, and obviously we all know in this group how many thoughts we have during the day, but whatever thought it is takes us through the process of emotions, actions, and our destiny, which is the karma. So very, very important to remember and kind of pay attention to what thoughts we have during the day, which is the role of a pure mind. And the role of a pure mind comes from the Vedas, Rig Veda directly, because it connects your mind and intellect and your senses, all of them together, into action and the karma. So for a Hindu, that's very important because of the karmic accounts that we all have, the karma that we talk about. Number two then is building resilience. It talks about, and there are all kinds of actually research done with the role of pure mind, with the guilt or the, anxiety causes, if you have guilt and resentment, then the anxiety comes into picture. Obviously, all kinds of research work has been done. Scientific research has been done with that. So building resilience actually is again a big part of managing anxiety, because when working with the younger generation at Duke, I found out that we're teaching them everything else, but we're not making them we're not giving them the spiritual guidance, spiritual strength that they need to build resilience into when they have the challenging times in life, that they can actually are resilient, that they can come back to, we'll always have challenging times in life, always. Life is ups and downs. But when we are on the downside, then we can have something that we can hold on to and make that down time a shorter and shorter time, actually. And that's what building resilience is all about. So Atharva Veda talks about a lot about the building resilience, and says that when you're younger, the younger generation, the brahmachari, the school, and until the age of 25, that's when we need to teach them about spirituality, teach them about how to manage their own anxiety, how to manage their own thoughts, and what that does to them. So teaching about spirituality, teaching about the self, and the yoga systems in a younger age is actually builds the resilience in human beings. But we're not doing that. We're not teaching our younger generation about spirituality and all that. So then we're not building them up, building their resiliency actually, which is at the later age when they have challenges, it becomes more and more difficult for people to handle challenges. So number 3 is performing rituals and prayers. Now, rituals and prayers are tools. They're tools, actually. They're tools to manage your anxiety. And a lot of the research has been done with that also. So the prayers, Hinduism has actually become about this number 3, about rituals and prayers. So it used to be, Hinduism is actually the Vedas, the 4 Vedas that I talked about, and the Upanishads. And the rituals are only one very small part of Hinduism. But in the modern days, rituals have become Hinduism, actually. It has become the religion that our Sanatan Dharma it's basically talked about that that's all Hinduism, but that's only one part of Hinduism. Rituals and prayers are only tools to understand our inner self, and having that inner self become synchronized with the Brahma, with the cosmic, with the consciousness, super consciousness. If our consciousness, we understand and learn and experience that. So rituals and prayers are tools, and obviously rituals are like doing pranayama, you're doing yoga, you're reciting mantras, doing prayers, and that's that. If we do that on a regular basis, we would be able to manage our anxiety level. Number 4 is spiritual counseling for handling challenges. Now, spiritual counseling for Hindus is non-existing anymore because we don't have Hindu chaplains in the US especially, and even in India, because in India there used to be, we used to have joint family type of concept. And so the spiritual counseling was very easily available. It was there all the time. We don't have that anymore. So we need, and that's one of the reasons I'm training these Hindu chaplains that can go into the community, to the university, and even the hospital and help people at the time of life challenges. The importance of religious support is there, and I'm going to go a little bit faster because I'm looking at the time. The concept of Seva and Karma is there. Seva is the service to others, and spiritual strength for the Hindu youth. We need to teach them a little bit more about it. And preventative Vedic practices are very, very big. Obviously, we need to be able to prevent, and kind of goes with the building the resiliency. So, but in my book, I kind of go through the details of all of this actually. And the proposed practices that I have are basically doing the eating the right food, breathing, and disciplining, meaning every day having your meditation, workout, and the mental health is a big part of it. So I'm going to kind of rush through here. Harold, can we go to the next page? So the Vedas actually emphasize the importance of resiliency, ethical values, and worship, such as reciting Sanskrit mantras. And the Sanskrit mantras are not just there's a lot of scientific research actually done with the Sanskrit mantras, which is the sound vibration and how you recite those actually changes with the brain rewiring, and also it helps in getting in sync with the cosmic vibration. And yajna is part of the rituals, which are the one of the tools actually for getting in connecting with the self and the Brahma. Basically, that's what all of this is all about. Okay, next one. So now my goal has become and what my understanding from all the work that I've done now is that we have to live a balanced life. Hinduism actually talks about living a joyful life. Actually, it's just a happiness and joyful and blissful state of a human being. That's one of the reasons why God, Brahma, created actually a human being. So we live to be joyful and be blissful and be happy. But that's only part of it. All of that comes with obviously challenges in life and all that, which is good, which is fine. But how do we handle those challenges? So the stellar model I actually developed almost 10 years ago, and I'm an executive coach, so I've been using stellar model, and this is the book that I'm been thinking about writing one of these days, is about the stellar model. But it's a way to live a balanced life. So if you can go to the next, this is the stellar model, and the stellar model is actually, it's a star with the five arms of the star. And so the first one is the self, which is the physical. And physical and mental, or physical and emotional health, which we the exercise and the mental health, we've all talked about that very, very in large. We all know a lot about that. And I'm going to go from the left side on. The second is professional. And so we need to be healthy. We need to be happy with the professional life, which we are all professional in this arena here. But being professional is such a big part of human being. And we shouldn't really minimize that at any point in our lives. And the next one is the community. We also, giving back is a big part of who we are. And as a Hindu, it's obviously the big karmic action that we need to be thinking about. So that's a big part of who we are. Family and relationships obviously are a big part of a human being. And we don't talk as much about, which is the self, or the spiritual part. And that's what I want to bring it into the picture, that addressing the self or spiritual part of who we are, we need to bring this into into every human's life to live a balanced life. But one thing to understand is that we're not always going to be balanced. It's not going to be always the same. When we are younger, the professional, or in 20s and 30s professional life, so the arm of that may be longer, and other spiritual life arm might be shorter. This model actually is a dynamic model. It changes on a weekly basis, but we have to make sure that we keep that in front of us, and the balance is the middle part of who we are. And it's we get pulled and pushed in all these directions, but we need to make sure that how do we come back to that groundedness and to who we really are, the self in the middle. And so the model is very dynamic, but the whole idea is to understand where we are at this point in our life. So Harold, can you go to the next? So I'll stop with saying, this is my quotation: success is working for a living, creating joy in life, and following your dharmic duties. Living a balanced life is what success is all about. That's just a little different than maybe what we're talking about. Success is not name and fame and money, in my opinion. It's about living a balanced life. And with that, I'm going to stop talking, because I've got 15 minutes for any questions and answers you might have, or comments, feedback. I'm open for all of that.
Just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
There's several things in the chat, actually, right?
Yeah. First one was, were you a chaplain with the hospital at Duke or with the university?
Yeah, I was at the university actually. And
Very good.
body, mind, and soul. Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Thank you for this wonderful conversation. Session. I missed one line. You said that the chanting the mantras, they change the wiring of the brain. I missed this line. Can you repeat this? What does it change? Can you
Well,
elaborate a bit?
yeah, I can send you if you share with or I'll share my email actually in the chat, and I can send you the
Yeah.
research work that has been done in Canada. Actually, a lot of research has been done in Canada with the Canadian psychologist, and I can send that to you. Actually, let me just.
I'm really interested in that.
I'm putting my email address in this, so then you can send me an email and I will forward that to you. How's that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's, because I grew up thinking if you recite this mantra, you'll get this, you'll get that, not understanding how, but by reciting it, you actually have that vibration in your brain, which actually sends the signal to the cosmos and gets in alignment with the cosmos. So it's pretty neat.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Here is a question in the chat. How much is modern psychological theories related to these Vedic theories? Modern psychological theories, how are they related to the Vedas?
Modern psychology, modern psychology has these theories. The Vedas are one of the things about the Vedas is that they have not been validated. Like the science is now starting to validate some of the theories, right? But they're not all validated yet. So people don't believe them. But now scientists are looking at taking each one of those theories and validating them, like the Sanskrit mantras that we talked about. And the breathing is now being validated for sure. There's all kinds of research done in that area. Psychologically, speaking, the theories are also the mind. I can't get too much into it now, but according to the Vedas, each one of the human beings have 5 layers of body, actually. So we talk about going from the inner body to the physical. The 5th one is the one that we all see, and the one inside is the soul. But the progression from individual layers of that really impacts psychological theories, understanding what those are, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and also I think what you talked about in your 9 steps, you talked about the influence of the thoughts on the emotions. That is core cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
So that's the most common form of counseling and psychotherapy, and most proven to be effective for virtually every diagnosis in the DSM-5, this cognitive behavioral therapy. And so that's right in alignment with what you were talking about.
Yeah. Thank you, Harold. Yeah, you're absolutely. Yeah. And the thought is one thought. So it's a thought model that I have. I call it a thought model. Obviously, a negative and a positive thought brings out the negative and the positive emotions, and those brings out the negative and the positive actions, and those positive or negative actions actually bring out the destiny. So when we say the destiny is in our own hands, the Vedas, say that every human being has the destiny in their own hands, and we have free will as human beings to take our destiny in the direction that we want to take it, positive or negative. And it comes out through karma and karmic actions and all of that. Get into the details of it, but basically, yes, each thought changes your destiny or could change your destiny. And psychological behavior, right? Emotional health. Any
Yeah,
other?
yeah. Thank you, Madhu Sharma, for wonderful talk. Here, my point is, you told about Gayatri Mantra. Can you elaborate how Gayatri Mantra helps in anxiety as well as in other areas of mental health, any reality distortions and other things, and any studies done by Gayatri? Thank you.
Yeah. I put my email. Maybe if you can send me your email, I can forward the research work to you. But how you do how you recite the Gayatri Mantra, it's about Om Bhur So where in your from inside out, the Gayatri Mantra reciting makes all the difference. Actually, it changes the physical and the chemical part of your brain. There's been studies conducted on that, but I can send you more information, don't have that much time to go into too much detail. But yeah, Gayatri Mantra is one of the two basic mantras in the Vedas. That, and the second one is actually Mahamrityunjaya Japa, which is the Shiva Mantra, right? And so Shiva, that Mahamrityunjaya, actually people have written about that can save from dying, a person from dying. And the Gayatri Mantra is the energy for the, basically synchronizing your vibration to the universe, to the Brahm, so then you get energy from the sun. And that's what Gayatri Mantra is all about. But you have to recite it in a certain way, actually, right?
There's another question in the chat by Sandeep. We are doing a study which assesses the efficacy of meditation, in this case, transcendental meditation, for alleviating burnout and improving resilience in healthcare workers. If anyone here is interested, please email me, and then Sandeep gives his email address there.
Okay.
And then another comment says, the way you describe voice and vibration reminds me of those who do energy work such as Reiki. Do you see similarities between these?
Yes, I have actually done Reiki certification. So yes, yeah, it's called Reiki, but it's the same energy work with Hindus we use. It's called Reiki because of where it came from, but it's the same type of healing that I'm just talking about with the Mahamrityunjaya Mantra that we have, can bring all that. But it's also with the Vedic philosophy, it's a matter of belief system. It's a matter of having faith in what you're doing. And that's a big part of it, because again, it goes back to the mind, negative and the positive thoughts. If you don't have faith in it, you just doing it for the sake of reciting these mantras, it doesn't work. So it has to be, you have to have total faith in it, because once you have faith, and then the tools are the mantras, but belief system and having that faith is a big part of it, obviously. But it's not a religion, it's a way of life. The Vedic Sanatan Dharma is a way of life. And we have all these tools, are the rituals and the prayers and the mantras and all that.
Another question in the chat is, how do you incorporate your social work training, which focuses on person in environment, with this Hindu approach that seems to focus on the inner?
It's all connected. I can talk for a half an hour on this, but basically social work is about kind and compassion, right? Social work and putting the other person, understanding who they are. That is the total philosophy of Hinduism, actually. So for me, being a good Hindu and practicing my dharmic way of life is actually, I'm a good social worker, because it's about what the basic beliefs is, or basic teachings of Vedic philosophy is that we're all connected. If we're all Brahma, we're all part of that Brahma, and we are connected to Brahma, then we are all the same. and that brings me to a point of non-judgment. I am not here to judge any of you because you are all the same as I am, no matter what you look like and what you're wearing and what academic achievements you may have or not have. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are just like me, and sometimes you may need some help, sometimes I need help, but without judgment, and helping and working with each other with kind and compassion, with no judgment. And that's the Vedic, that is actually the whole Vedic philosophy, and which is what social work philosophy is in a way, right? If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Another comment by Dolores Gallagher is, please, can you share the empirical research base for this work? And you've given your email address, right? And maybe if Dr. Gallagher could send you an email, you could then respond and provide that research.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll do that. Any of you that wants to, and all of that is actually in my book too here. So I'll send you that. Actually, it's on Kindle. The book is now on Kindle. So, and for not very much, money, but I can share you individual research if you have. I'll send that to you. Email it to me, and I'll be more than happy to follow up on that.
Wonderful. And now Dorothy Scotton has a comment. She says, I wonder if there's an issue with the use of intellect and staying in the mind, how to integrate being an incarnate soul and finish off the final karma by going through the human experience. And also, you also are talking about Shabad, or the holy sound. So that was a comment.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's actually a whole new, this is something to understand, part of the Vedas. Like I said, 5, I was saying earlier, each human is made of the 5 layers. And so the mind, it starts with the soul, intellect, mind, prana, and then the body, so they're all, it's a 5 of each individual. And to understand the difference between the intellect and the mind, which is not easily understood because it doesn't exist in the scientific academic arena. Actually, it's from the Vedas, and it's difficult to understand, but it is what intellect for the Vedas, or English translation of that we're talking about, is the between mind and the soul. There is another layer that we have, and that is the intellect, is what I'm talking about. It's in Sanskrit, so some of that may be lost in translation also, but that's what my translation actually is, English translation from what I've read.
Very good.
Yeah.
Here's another question. Can you spell the 2 mantras you are speaking about? Can you spell them?
Yeah, Gayatri, I'll put it on this. And that this is going to, hope the spelling is Mrityunjay, but those 2 are the mantras. And I can send you those also, not a problem. If you email me, I'll send that to you.
Very good. We're getting short of time here, but this one but from Joe Bradley is, do you recommend veganism?
Veganism. I am a vegetarian, not a vegan. And if it's for the health benefit, it's fine. I am just one of those people that can't even kill a spider. So I can't, one of the reasons I'm vegetarian, maybe that I just can't, bring myself to eat any meat. But my family is all, they're not vegetarian. I cooked meat and fish and all that for my family. So one has to it's about your own self. You have to be comfortable with who you are and what you're eating. It's not about anybody else. I think it's, the whole concept of say self or soul is about, we need to be authentic. We need to know who we are and what makes us comfortable. And again, I'm not here to judge anybody. So not judging anybody else also is what the Vedic philosophy is all about, actually. We're all on a different life journey, actually, before, instead of getting too much into reincarnation and all that, but we're all on our own individual journey, and whatever works for us for physical, mental health and spiritual health is what we need to do. That's my long-winded answer, actually.
Well, that's great. That's great, Madhu. We have reached our time. I'm so I'm so sad that we've reached our time, because this has been such a terrific presentation and great questions and wonderful discussion. So, but all good things come to an end. So Madhu, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation to everyone, and thank you to everyone who's been on the call and who has been participating. And we'll see you next month at our seminar. So
can I maybe just add, I did put my email, so if anytime any of you want to connect with me, I would love to get the feedback on what your thought, because this is a little different type of work, right? The combination, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So email me if you don't mind, please. How's that?
Madhu, can you just spell out your email for those who don't have, the chat or can't get to the chat? Can you spell out?
Sure. MVEDAK .Sharma SHARMA @gmail.com.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you so much again, Madhu, and God bless everybody and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.